G'day and welcome again to another Campfire Project discussion. Now, with me today I have, first of all, Angela Heise up there in Queensland. Angela is an emotional productivity trainer and coach. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you, Alan.
You've been a bit of a regular lately, so it's really great to have you back here again.
It's always wonderful to be here. The conversations are brilliant. The company is wonderful. So why wouldn't I want to be back?
And we didn't have to pay her much to say that either. And then we have Dawn Cady from the Blue Mountains. Dawn's a pain transformation coach. How are you, Dawn?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Really good, thanks. Welcome. And then we have Michael Lauria down there in Melbourne, who is a men's mentor and relationship coach and the author of Excalibur, which is a great book, by the way. Welcome to the group, Michael.
Thank you, Alan. It's good to be back again.
It's really great. And I think today, we were going to run this yesterday, but we had to put it off to today because of certain reasons. And it's typical that the subject today is about procrastination. So I don't know whether we were procrastinating or it was just the technical problems that we were having, but here we are today anyway. But Michael, you're the one who posed the subject of procrastination. So would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Okay. I think procrastination is a very interesting subject to talk about because we all do it, and we've either all done it or we do it now or we will do it in the future. And it's one of those avoidance strategies that we tend to use in order to try and put off something that we know we have to do or should do and could do in the moment, but we choose not to for various reasons. And those reasons vary from person to person and situation to situation. So I think it's a really good subject or topic to discuss because there are so many deep reasons why people avoid and procrastinate in certain situations. And I think between the four of us, we might be able to come up with some really good insights into that.
Yeah, probably able to cover a lot of areas where I procrastinate, but we won't go into all of those.
And me too. Yeah, so I just think it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah. So, Angela, what were you going to say?
I said agreed.
Agreed. Okay. What would you like to add to what Michael said?
I think it is a very important topic to discuss, especially in today's world where we are just so overwhelmed with so many different things that we have to do. You know, there are constant changes, there are constant updates. Nothing stays the same, and not even for the shortest period of time. I mean, how many apps do you have to update at the moment? I mean, I don't even want to open my app store at the moment because it'll tell me that there are 77 updates to make, or, you know, and again, it's as everything is moving faster and faster. And I think that there are some things that I look at and I go, this is in the too hard basket. It's not urgent. And I'll put it aside to deal with what's really important and urgent at that time.
And that sort of poses a question as to all the things that we're doing. And we talk about procrastination. What is procrastination and what is just the overwhelm of things? So what's the separation between it? You know, we've got so many things that have, as you said, are going on, but then we've got things that we just look at and we just keep putting them aside simply because we just don't want to do them or for whatever. But in other cases, there's so many things we don't do because there's just too many things to do.
Well, if I may offer a neuroscience perspective on that, if that's okay. There's actually a biological reason for why we procrastinate. And that has to do with the fact that we've got an organ called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, which is a part of the brain that manages empathy, but it also manages decision-making and emotions and all of that. And it communicates very closely with the amygdala, with the organ that registers emotions in the first place. So, and the DAAC is also in charge of decision-making. So when it receives from the amygdala a very strong response, there's a really strong emotion going on, it delays the decision making because it wants to make sure that, you know, if it goes into overwhelm, maybe I'll make a wrong decision. So therefore, maybe I don't make a decision at all. So, and the more stressed out we become, which is the case today, is the bigger the amygdala can be. And the bigger the amygdala, the more delayed the response is from the AAC with regards to, I'm delaying the response, I'm not going there at the moment, that decision is too risky.
So it becomes a neurological control on this that is affecting us in that way. Is there ways around dealing with that?
Yes, meditation.
Mindfulness and meditation
Yes.
is the answer to just about everything, I think.
Yes.
I wonder also if procrastination is one of these subconscious things that we do, and we almost, well, not procrastination, but putting ourselves into overwhelm. And we know full well that we have so much to do and we're mostly time poor as well. And I wonder if there's a subconscious mechanism that happens, as you were kind of saying, Angela, about a protective mechanism as well, to not make mistakes and not to go further than where we're comfortable, that perhaps we overwhelm ourselves subconsciously, intentionally, so that we don't have to deal with as much as we have put on our plates, perhaps. And then that gives us a really good excuse or a really good reason to not do things and to not progress past what's comfortable.
So, Dawn, in your coaching work, how have you found that as well? Have you found a connection there?
Yeah. So what I've found is that people use tired for an excuse. So what they actually do is they train themselves to believe that they're tired, so then the body goes, we're tired. So they use their mind to program the body that they're tired, and that's their excuse. That's how they have procrastination come into their lives. And yes, they are tired. When you have chronic pain, it's exhausting, it's scary, and it's overwhelming. So of course, the amygdala, you are in constant fight or flight, and that's what I actually do, is I reprogram the neural pathways in the mind to be able to, well, should I say the brain, to be able to calm down the nervous system. So I use a technique called emotional freedom technique, and what that does is it separates the amygdala from the nervous system. So it allows the body to believe that it's calm and it's okay to vent and rant out. So I find, yeah, meditation is good, but if you've got thoughts that are continually, perpetually going around in your mind, meditation is not the first step that you can take with people, especially in chronic pain. It needs to be something where they actually vent out what they're feeling inside, because suppression seems to be the thing that causes issues for lots of people, and procrastination is one of those things.
So that would connect with, Angela, a lot of your work is around anger as well. So people being able to express that anger in the right way. It's not a matter of getting rid of anger, for instance. It's being able to express it. So that sort of connects together, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the thing is, it's doing it in a constructive way, because we can actually vent anger and our frustration in such a way that we amplify it, that it actually spirals up and it creates even more anxiety.
Yep.
So when we've got techniques to be able to do it in a safe environment with people who, and I say that very deliberately, people who don't care, because they are not part of the scenario. They're not part of the stress. They are just able to hold the space for us while we vent. Then we can let go of the stress and the overwhelm. But often what we do is we, again, it's not necessarily a procrastination technique. We don't go to the wrong people to delay any kind of decision. But what we do is we go to people and we tell them, I go to Alan and I say, Alan, you know, Michael, and I've got a really big problem with Michael. And then we create that drama because Alan can't stop but not be involved, because he knows Michael really well. And then what we do is we create more emotional overwhelm, which then creates more procrastination. It creates more drama. And then we probably create, what Michael says, more of that overwhelm and more things that we have to deal with, rather than getting on with what we really need to get on with.
That's right. Because with what you're talking about there is the emotional empathy that people get all tied up in and caught up in, because if we feel that we want to help that person, we get caught up in it. When you said somebody who doesn't care, it's not so much that they don't care, but they're coming from a place of compassionate empathy.
Yes.
Where they're not connected and they haven't they haven't taken on that other person's emotional rubbish or situation, so that they can then be focused on the outcome. So you're going to somebody who not so much doesn't care, but somebody who is emotionally disconnected from the issue.
Yes.
So they can listen and help you clearly.
Exactly. And when somebody is not involved, they can actually really be present with somebody. They can manage that attention. They can be really compassionate. But when we're really involved in somebody, it triggers us as well. And then all of a sudden we're all in that emotional drama together. And then, then it's not just one person getting into possibly procrastination, then it just becomes a ripple effect.
We see it all over Facebook every day when somebody makes a comment and people just jump on taking sides straight away. So it's as good as that.
And it's interesting because a lot of people practice, a lot of people are absolute masters at avoidance as well. So they use all of these avoidance strategies in order to not deal with the stuff that they have to deal with or should be dealing with. And then they perpetuate an environment within their own lives of almost self-sabotaging whilst they're stepping in to be the rescuer for other people, and procrastinating in their own stuff. And then they can avoid what they have to do. And then at the end of the day, they look back on their day, if they're even self-reflective in the first place. They'll look back on their day and they go, oh, see, I've been so busy that I didn't achieve anything. And it wasn't because they were busy, it was because they were avoiding all of this stuff and getting involved with other people's stuff, as Angela was saying, and almost enmeshing themselves in other people's drama as a procrastination and avoidance strategy, which they then self-sabotage their own life. Yeah. And then they fall into that victim mentality, and then there's more procrastination because then they're a victim. Yeah. So it's an interesting cycle that I've actually seen, and I've perpetuated this cycle in the past too. I think we all have, if we're being honest. And I see my clients perpetuating this same cycle when they identify with a story they've created in their own mind about whatever struggle they're going through. And then because they've identified with this struggle and because they have really connected very deeply with this particular pain or struggle, they then don't engage in their own life at the level that they need to, which is, again, a strategy of avoidance and procrastination, which then causes more issues for themselves. So it's this self-perpetuating cycle that I find a lot of people get themselves into.
Yeah, because we hear people talk about procrastination and say, well, that's when somebody does nothing. But as you've said, being distracted and not getting involved in other people's stuff, we're procrastinating on our own stuff, but we're being active. So we don't think that we're procrastinating at all. We're just having ourselves on.
Yeah. And because people can't step out of that, you know, what's called the drama, the so-called drama triangle, they can't step out of the drama triangle and become the observer. When we can become the observer, and then we don't engage in any of that part of the drama triangle. And then there's really no excuse to procrastinate then when we're the observer. That's undesirable, isn't it? Because we want to be in the drama cycle, so that we are the drama triangle, so that we can avoid our own stuff and we can procrastinate. And that gives us a really good excuse to do so, because we're busy dealing with other people's stuff and we're helping other people.
And we can feel important while we're doing that, so it doesn't seem that we're actually procrastinating, we're just deluding ourselves even further. Yep. Go on, you're going to say something then?
I was just going to say that I describe it to my clients as the hamster wheel. It's hard to get out of it. And the only way to do it is through powerful questions. Ask yourself powerful questions at the end of the day. And as soon as you do that on a night, like the reflective, what you said, Michael, was reflecting back on your day. When you do that on a night and you sit there and ask yourself 3 questions, just 3 questions. What did I do today? What did I feel like I achieved? What was I happy with? Then you want to, on a night, you want to be happy with what you've achieved in your day. So you slowly chip away at that procrastination. And that's the way that I get my clients to go down. I get them to go down that path, because some people are too afraid to look at the procrastination, because then they go, I have wasted all my life. So then you get them in that spiral of depression. But if you get them to ask themselves the 3 powerful questions on a night, they slowly chip away and pull themselves out. And then they come to the realization, I need to start observing myself in the day, because I have not achieved anything today and there's nothing I'm happy about, and I want to be happy tomorrow. I want to be happy when I go to bed. So it's giving people that realization without actually being very confrontational with it. And I found that powerful with people in pain, because when you're in pain, you achieve nothing. You just lay on the lounge, you feel sorry for yourself. And I know that because I've been there. And you watch so much rubbish on the TV. You've watched every episode of everything that imaginable. And then you're like, it's 6, 12, 18 months down the line. What have you achieved in that time apart from wallowing in self-pity? Because what else are you supposed to do? No one else tells you what you're supposed to do. You're in pain, you're in suffering. So that's what I found, is just starting people off with those questions. And then when the frustration comes up with the procrastination, then get them to tap and vent it out. So I call it tap and rant, where they actually ran everything out. I can't believe I've done it again. I'm so stupid. And get rid of that loop, because that is actually feeding the procrastination. So if you allow it to have a voice and don't suppress it, that's when you start to get real results with people. And the other thing is with decision making. When it comes to decision making, people are paralyzed by that. So then they do the avoidance, don't they, Michael, like you said, and like Angela said, then the amygdala get in the back in that cycle again. You just get them to ask themselves again 3 questions. What's the worst, the best, and most likely? What's the worst thing that will happen if I take action on this? I'll bloody hate doing it. I won't want to do it. I'll be fighting myself doing it. And the best is I'll get it done and I won't have to think of the thing again. It won't go around in my head. And the most likely is I'll probably think about it for a few more days before I do it. And when you get people to do those powerful questions, it changes people's perspective, and they don't beat themselves up. And getting them to go through it and imagining themselves doing it, imagining themselves completing that task, getting the emotion, getting the feeling of accomplishment, then what happens is they actually want to go and do that task because they've already felt the emotion, the instant gratification of fulfilling what they need to do. So that's my little bit on procrastination.
There's some really good conscious tools that I help people with as well, because you know, you can't reprogram the subconscious. It's not easy. I mean, you can do it. It's not easy, and it takes repetition and time, right? Yeah. But there's some really good conscious things that we can talk with people about doing to try to avoid procrastination. So practice some advanced decision making. And so this is some of the stuff that I do. The night before, I will write a list of things that I need to do the next day or I want to do the next day. And then I'm disciplined enough to be able to do this now, but it wasn't always the case. And so I'd start on my list first thing in the morning. I'd have my little time, you know, my time periods of different things that I will do, different tasks that I want to do. And then at about lunchtime, I'll self-reflect on the morning. And I'll go, okay, well, have I been productive? Have I achieved what I can honestly tell myself is a reasonable amount this morning? Yep. And if I can say, yes, I have, then I feel good. And then I move into the afternoon, and I'm probably even more productive in the afternoon than what I was in the morning. And the good part about this is when I get to lunchtime, if I can look back and say, I haven't been as productive as what I could have been, then that motivates me to be more productive in the afternoon too. So you're not getting to the end of the day and looking back on a day and feeling like it's been wasted. At the very worst, the position that I put myself in now, the very, very worst is that I will feel my morning has been wasted, or I haven't been as productive as I could have been, as opposed to the whole day.
May I offer something to that as well, to add to Michael's? I also like making lists. I love creating lists, and I put them in a book, and I sometimes put them on the phone. I've got a list where I add things and then I transfer them. What I found I'm really good at is I have all of these lists, and they've got really big tasks and really little tasks. And sometimes I look at the big task and it's so overwhelming that I don't even want to go there. So it's breaking it up into smaller steps and saying, I start with this and I move to that. And sometimes not doing it on one day, but breaking it up over several days and putting that again into the list. Because it's just so easy to get stuck into the little tasks first. And then having all of these minutiae that have to be handled first, and then what's really important gets put aside. Yeah. I really like, I don't know if you know Stephen Covey's. Eat that frog. Eat that frog first.
Yeah.
So it's about
that's Brian Tracy, isn't it?
Brian Tracy, yes. Yeah. So it's about do the task that you would put off. Tackle that one first thing in the morning.
Because once that one's out of the way, the rest of the day is clear. But you know, if you're a procrastinator, you've got that long list of all those little things that you were able to get done, and on the other side, you just got that one big thing that you haven't even gone anywhere near. That's self-satisfied because you've done all those things.
Which is why if you break up that big frog into smaller steps and you take care of those, then it can actually get you going get you into action.
Yeah,
that works well, because when it comes to profiling people, there's two traits as to whether somebody is what we call it. You know, somebody who comes from the area of construction, they like to start and finish little projects and move very quickly. If you give them a long-term project, they struggle, especially if it's a year-long project. They just can't get through it. There's a school child, for instance, and the idea there is to break it down into little components. So they've got to start, a finish, and a new start, and a new finish, and a new start, so they can see levels of accomplishment along the way. And just in what you were saying there, I was thinking about one of the manuals I'm putting together. It's a massive project on its own. But if one day I create the templates for all the pages, another day I pull some information that I've already got sitting in another document into that, another day pull other things in. As you do all those little ones, if I've got all those listed as little items to do, then I've got a success as I'm finishing those. So I'm actually doing stuff, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get nowhere, but which is what I'm doing if I'm just looking at a big project and not starting. So to break it down that way is a really good tip. Thanks for that.
Is that a facial trait?
Yeah, it's one of the facial traits.
Do we want to know what it is? Do we want to know which one we are or not?
Well, luckily, all three of you are more around the what I call conservation trait, which has been able to start and do long-term projects, do repetitive stuff over and over, whereas somebody who's more with the construction trait likes variety. Give them a long-term project, they'll never finish it. There'll always be a reason as to why they couldn't get it done, because they just can't focus for long periods of time. So if you've got a child like that, they're going to struggle with long-term projects at school. But if you're able to break it up and go, rightio, here's a start, here's how you can actually finish that component, then we can start on the next one. They feel like they're actually getting variety, as opposed to doing a large project, which is just one long, boring process. Turns them right off.
I must have forced myself to do that. I always thought I was the latter.
I
must have retrained myself.
Yeah, well, you've got a few other facial features there, and that tell me a few more things we'll talk about. Because it's not just one trait on its own that defines you, it's a combination of all your traits together. But by the way, it was no use doing that because I got you when you came on screen. There's no hiding.
I think wear masks. I think I have to wear masks.
Well,
right.
as they say in that, you can't read a book by its cover. When you got these skills, yes, their faces the whole book. Very transparent. Yeah.
Speaking of books, so when I wrote my book earlier this year, and I've told you this before, Alan, I spent about 3 months procrastinating because it felt overwhelming to go from creating this Word document, just even starting to it, where do I start to write a book, and then having this vision of a finished paperback book. And I procrastinated for about 3 months, and then when I made a decision to do it, and I thought, I'm just going to do this, I then wrote the book in 3 weeks. So, and so I could have done that 3 months before, but I employed all of these avoidance strategies because it felt overwhelming. And so, yeah, just going on what you were saying before, Angela, yeah.
And as you can say at that point as well, we can say, oh, well, maybe the universe wasn't ready for it 3 months ago, so maybe I'm okay. Yeah. We can justify our procrastination as we go along.
Justify the procrastination. Yeah.
That's good going. 3 months procrastination.
I was going to say.
I know people like a decade, like a couple of my friends have just published books and they're like, I've been birthing this for 7 years. And I'm like, Jesus, I don't know if I want to start a book then, birthing for 7 years. God. Yeah, so I think you've done really well there, 3 months procrastination.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, high five.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, with the people you're working with and that, and for the people who are listening today, I guarantee that we're all procrastinating at some level or another. Yeah. What tips, how would you say to them, what are some of the best ways to get started on breaking down the procrastination and getting moving?
I think visualising yourself doing it. I think that's, to me, that's the one that helped me the most, getting that feeling and that sensation that I'd actually accomplished it. That's, to me, is the biggest one that has helped me the most. And breaking it down, you can't eat one elephant. You can't just eat an elephant, can you? You have to take one bite at a time. It's the same thing. Chunk it down. Make it so it's easy. Don't overcomplicate things, because we love to overcomplicate everything. Life is simple. It's just not easy. But we like to make it the other way around. We like to make it hard on ourselves, and we overcomplicate it by doing that. So just, life is simple. It's just not easy. Sit down, take your time, slow down. We're too fast. Everything's fast paced. Get it done now. And then we become overwhelmed. So to me, break it down, as both Angela and Michael said, break it down and just imagine yourself doing it and getting that feeling. Because once you have that feeling that you've done it already, you'll start to just do it. You'll take the action. That's what's helped me personally.
Because what I get from that is we're talking about procrastination and we're saying, well, slow down. But it's a slow down in a completely different way. Whereas procrastination, as Michael was saying before, being caught up in other people's stuff and being very active. As you say, it's taking that time. It's thinking about where you're going to be. If I keep going down the path I'm on, where will I be in the future? Where do I want to be in the future? And getting that understanding of the two popular destinations, the one you're heading towards now with your present action, the where you want to go, and then determine, well, okay, how important is that to me? And then come back and go, okay, if I want to achieve that, then what are the stages I have to go through to get there?
That's right. That's slowing down right there. That is slowing down right there. Nobody really does that.
Slowing down.
Yeah.
So you're slowing down and becoming very much more active, but proactive in the right direction.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. You can't reflect unless you slow down. It's as simple as that. And it's not easy because we've been taught that we've got to get things done now. And like Angela was saying in the beginning, you open up your phone and there's 76 updates. It's like, seriously, everything is so fast paced, but we need to do the complete opposite to what's happening. Is that easy? No, but it's simple.
What I
think strategy is that I'll go for it.
No, you go.
It's okay, please.
I was going to add to Dawn this. What really works for me is I have an accountability buddy. We get together every Monday morning at 8:45, and we will have emailed each other the list of what we do for this week, but we also debrief ourselves on we transfer the list of what we did, what were the goals for last week, into a new document, and we look at what did we actually do. I mean, I tick mine off during the week as I go, but it's still going through it, and I've got a red cross for haven't done it, I've got a yellow tick for I'm halfway there, and a green tick for I've done it. And it's really useful to have somebody sit there, even when I break things down into smaller steps, but somebody sits there and says, and my accountability buddy has done that, looked at me and said, how are you going to get through that week? That is just insane. Are you sure you want that much on your plate? And I'd sit there and go, well, you're right. And what I do then is I actually take some of the things that I call the overachiever goals, and they go into to possible next week as well. So I don't put that much pressure on myself. Or we acknowledge also that sometimes life gets in the way. I know it's school holidays at the moment. So my accountability buddy says, my family at the moment comes first. So my goals are all around managing my kids. So work at the moment has to take a big step back. And that's also, we encourage each other to do that as well. And it makes a really big difference. Not that we're saying the other person is now responsible for managing us and saying, and also saying, you know what, I've seen you move this 3 weeks already. You think you're going to get it eventually? It doesn't mean that now we're outsourcing the responsibility for achieving things to the other person, but it's good to have that feedback.
Well, the other person's keeping us responsible for our own actions.
Yeah.
We said we're going to do that. Having someone say to me, well, you said you were going to do this last week. What happened? And then when you come up with the excuses, I can just sort of look at it and go, well, that's procrastination, or you were off doing, that was an avoidance, or whatever it might have been. So you're having somebody who is, as you said, you're not transferring the responsibility to them, but you're giving them the permission to keep you accountable of your own actions.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things. We have profit partners, and every week I've got a number of them, and every week we get together. The first thing is, well, it's always, what's your plans for this week? How can I help you? Who do you need to be connected to? But the first part, after the very first one of those that we have, is always what you said you were going to do last week. It's a similar thing. Have you done that? What haven't you done yet? Why haven't you done it? And then you move into where you're moving, what you're doing this coming week. And when you've got a number of people doing that, you can lie to one person, that you can't lie to a number of people and get away with it. Have yourself on, they'll pull you back into line.
Yeah.
Michael, you were going to say before. You had something else?
Just a little bit more on what we were talking about before in regards to creating lists and
having some really conscious actions and intentions behind what we do. So when we feel overwhelmed and we feel like procrastinating, that's usually when it happens, when we feel overwhelmed. A really good thing to do is to take that big cloud of overwhelm and put pen to paper and actually write a list. And it's just, you just keep on writing and writing and writing until you go, okay, well, I can't think of anything else I have to do. And then this is what I've done in the past, and it's worked really well. And then I take that list and I go, okay, cool. So what's a low priority? What's a medium sort of level priority? And what are the high priority things that need to be done now? And you make 3 separate lists. And then you go, okay, cool. You set a goal and you go, well, these high priority things are going to get done in the next day or 2 days or 3 days. And then you create a list for a day or 2 days or 3 days. And then you do this for all 3 of those sections. And you find pretty quickly that you actually get through all this stuff. And as you do, there's less and less overwhelm. And when there's less and less overwhelm, there's less and less avoidance. When there's less and less avoidance, there's less and less procrastination. And then you feel better about the fact that you're achieving stuff. And then you want to achieve more, and you'll write more lists and you'll do more things. And yeah, that's what's worked for me. So it's a good, conscious, intentional strategy to use whilst you're visualizing, actually achieving everything that you want to achieve as well. Yeah,
it's acting on that list, because one of the things is with calendars, you can put all your stuff into the list for today, and then find that you didn't do it today, so push it to tomorrow, and then push it to the next day, and before long the damn thing's grown a beard. It's got that old. And it's like, what have I done? And you go, oh, that's no longer important. It's too late. So that falls off the list, and it's, oh, I've done that.
So imagine if you were to combine that with some self-reflective practices at lunchtime or around lunchtime, and then in the evening, and pair that up with accountability buddy as well. As Angela was saying, that's all pretty powerful, right? When you visualize, create lists, have an accountability partner, and self-reflect, you actually can't get away with anything then if you have all of those strategies in place.
If we combined all our skills together, we'd be the most incredible human being walking the face of the earth.
Wouldn't we?
Wouldn't we?
Balance like this. I already am.
But I'll have to go away and think about it.
I think it's important to find that middle ground between keeping busy and doing things just for doing things, and getting and being really productive. Because we can keep ourselves busy and create lists and tick things off and feel really good about what we've accomplished, or we can focus on what's really important. I know that they did a study in the 80s, which I remember because I started working, and there was a study that came out that said that 100 years at that point before, people were doing in a year what we were doing then in a month. And that was when we still had fax. There was no email yet. So can you imagine how much we are now doing, which people 150 years ago, or whenever, like 100, even less than that, 130 years ago, were doing in a year? We probably can knock all of this off in a week now.
And life expectancy was shorter too back then.
Sorry?
Life expectancy was shorter back then too, so we had less time.
And what I find so amazing is we've got, I mean, people say, oh, I have laundry day today, or I need to, laundry day means I sort the laundry, I put it into the washing machine. You know, that's not really, I know that's, and there are families where you do 4 or 5 washing machines every day, and I get that. But I remember my grandmother having to boil the kettle to, you know, to stir the pot, and laundry took a whole day, if not longer. And we now have all of this equipment and all of these household aids, and we're still in overload.
On Saturdays I get up, and my washing day is probably from around about 7 o'clock till 7:05.
Yeah.
I wash, I'm out, and I'm often going to doing something else.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I said to one of my clients, I said, oh, I've been busy doing the washing today. And I said, that's interesting. How long did it take for you to put the washing in the washing machine? And he said, 30 seconds. And how long does the washing machine go for? About an hour?
I set an alarm for 11:40.
I didn't ask him to set an alarm. This is my Apple devices. They're going wild. And And I said, well, so how long does the washing go for? And he said, oh, about an hour. I said, what do you do in that hour? I don't know. I just do a bit here and a bit there and a bit somewhere else. So exactly what you said.
Facebook. Read some Facebook, play a game.
Scroll. We use that thumb of ours and we scroll.
Yeah. Yes.
And this is, it's an amazing strategy, procrastination. And so people use all these excuses, but they're really just excuses. We've got time. It's a matter of how we choose to spend our time.
That's it. Well, as they say, 86,400 seconds in the day. We've all got exactly the same amount of time. And it's never that a shortage of time. It's always a matter of priorities. Where do we put our priority? What was the most important? But as you said, Dawn, if we don't do that planning and work out what things are really important, and putting lists together, as you said, Michael, and that, and prioritising it, then you're not going to get there. Once you're able to prioritise it, work out what's most important, and then go, okay. And then, as you've said, Angela, just making sure that you've got a suitable number of things on the list, that you're not putting extra on, that then causes you to start sweating about the fact you're not going to get it finished, which then stops you from doing stuff in the process. And
one of the biggest keys here is to be very intentionally self-reflective. Be very intentionally self-reflective, then you'll actually get through this list. If you're not going to self-reflect, don't even bother writing a list. You might do it. Yeah.
And as Dawn was saying, get in touch with the feeling of having completed those tasks. Yeah. You know, when you know what you're aiming for, then you're likely to get there. I generally use, Alan knows this, I like metaphors. I like using the metaphor of a plane. So if you're getting into a plane and you're flying somewhere, and you don't set a specific goal, you can't say, I'm going to fly to the USA. That's a continent. You know, you're not going to be able to land anywhere, because eventually you run out of petrol, because not everything will be exciting and everything will be wonderful, but you haven't made a decision. But if you decide you're going to fly to Los Angeles or to New York or wherever, then it doesn't matter how tempting Miami looks or how much you would like to explore Alaska and Anchorage in the spring, you'll still go to New York or to Los Angeles, and that's where you go. And knowing how you want to feel when you get there, that's like setting an autopilot. You know, because if I know how I feel and I start getting frustrated or I start procrastinating and I get bored or anything like that, I know I'm not getting to my destination, and it means I can bring myself back on track. I can engage my autopilot again, and then I can go.
So train your mind, haven't you?
Yeah.
It takes time. It doesn't happen. We are born with this skill, but then it's drummed out of us because we're doing other people's work that they want us to do and living other people's expectations. And we lose the ability to do this naturally. And you've just got to retrain yourself. That's the only difference between successful people and those that aren't as successful as they want to be. You have to work at it. It's not easy. It isn't. But there's so many tools out there. There's so many great books. And the advice that we've given is, I wish I'd have known this before I started business, because I'm telling you, I'd have achieved a lot more.
A lot more.
Their education system has been designed to get us ready to work. It will fit us into boxes. Whereas if you look at all children, they're full of ideas. They're entrepreneurs.
Exactly right.
Go to school and, entrepreneurs are really, they don't fit in. So, we're looking for that bell curve, that middle section, the majority. And there's at the front or the tail end of that, who have both got a lot of gifts, they miss out. So we've all got to conform to that structure. And then we get out in the real world and we go, then the request is they want us to be entrepreneurs again. They want us to come up with ideas and everything else. We've been taught not to think. So I'm sort of wondering how much of the way in which we procrastinate was a learnt behaviour of that education that we've got over all those period of years.
I think it's a learned behaviour. I honestly think that we weren't born like that or created like that. Look at children when they learn how to walk. They don't procrastinate about it. They don't care how many times they fall down. They don't think, you know what, I'm going to run before I start to stand up and get some balance. They know what to do. They know exactly what to do and they don't give up on it. But what do? When we come out of school, we procrastinate. We think we're not good enough to do anything. We get scared when we fall down. We don't know how to get back up.
And it could also be another response. Michael mentioned the drama triangle. So this is also from transactional analysis from the School of Psychology, where you've got the different types of the ego types that we use to communicate. I can go into rebellious child, and I can say to somebody who says, "Haven't you finished this yet?" And I'm going to use a 4-letter word, "Fuck you! I'm not going to do this because you don't tell me what to do." And then I go into procrastination because I want to prove that I have my own will and you can't tell me to do anything. And I find that often comes from those are people who've had parents who've had very high expectations, where the child often didn't have the opportunity to say, I really need some rest and time out, or I deserve to actually play with my friends or anything. There was like the parents said, you need to, you must, you ought to. And then when somebody grows up, they just want to avoid that. As soon as there's any kind of deadline or there's an expectation, they go back into rebellious child and they go, no, I'm not doing that. And there's nothing that frustrates a critical parent or somebody who's had high expectations more than somebody who procrastinates and does things at the very last minute. It's a power game sometimes.
And through that process, we've created that issue, and that because, I keep saying in that we're neither carpenters or sculptors. Our job's not to turn our kids into something that we think they should be. We're gardeners. We're supposed to nurture the children so they become the best versions of themselves. If they're doing that, you don't have any rebellion.
That's right.
You don't go through that stuff, and that child is always moving forward. So where we're trying to push them into a particular shape or role or whatever, they're going to fight back, as you've said, and that's when the procrastination starts. But if we've been guiding them and helping them to grow and expand their horizons all the time, they never get taught how to procrastinate. So procrastination to a child like that is, what are you talking about? Does that really exist?
Because it's not about perfectionism, it's about achievement.
That's right. And if we focus on the fact that, it's not about getting the achievement at the end, it's the process in getting there and getting to that better level. You have to fail to really learn, because if you don't fail at all, you don't learn anything because you already knew it all. So there is no growth. Failure is growth.
Yep,
the two go hand in hand until people go, oh, I can't fail. Well, what you're telling your child or anybody else around you and yourself, don't grow. And that's frightening. But I'm in my later 60s and this is what I grew up with. So it's breaking that programming that we've had. Sure. I was a damn good student. I've really got some crap bloody programs running. It's been a real struggle to try and change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I believe it's completely programmed. I don't think that we're born to procrastinate. I truly don't.
Of course we're not. Of course we're not. In teenage years, kids get very overwhelmed at school with so much work, so much homework, so much learning. They have to learn sometimes 7 or 8 different subjects at the same time, and they've got all this different homework to do. My daughter's in year 11. My oldest daughter's in year 11, and the amount of work she has to do at 17 is absurd. It really is. It is absolutely. I looked at it and I think, well, did I have to do that when I was in year 11? Did I have that much to do? There's 8 different subjects. There's 8 different sets of homework. She's literally coming home from school, and it's homework, and she has a break for dinner, and then she goes to bed at about 9:30 or 10 o'clock or something, and it's all homework. It's all homework and study. And I'm going, what? For what purpose do they need to know all this stuff? I just, and it's overwhelming. It is absolutely. It's no wonder kids and teenagers procrastinate when they have to do homework. It's so much.
They're taught to do subjects. That was a key word that you said, and that's what I picked up on, is that they're taught to do this subject, which means they've got to do that subject, they've got to do that subject. But when you teach them how to think, how to process things, you don't need to teach them subjects anymore. I know that in Finland, the kids of those ages do not do homework. They don't give it to them, and their performance is much higher. And a few years ago, I sort of started slapping my head when I listened to a director of one of the private school arenas down in Sydney talking about how he'd just come back from overseas and they'd been looking at problem-based learning, this new way of thinking. Well, the medical industry's been using that since the 1940s. And to him, rote learning was what we've always done, but now we've got this new way of doing things. But problem-based learning and experiential learning That's when the person gets involved. They start to really think. You're not just giving them information and telling them to follow a process.
Yeah.
And until I think we get back to that, it's going to be hard to, we're educating more and more people to be procrastinators. So yes, if you're in a business of helping people to stop procrastinating, you're never going to run out of clients, because we've got an education system out there that's giving the next generation ready for you, so you can run your business longer.
That's a great idea. I might change my business model.
The king of procrastination.
No, I love the idea of working on problems with people. You sit down with a child and you start to talk about a problem and get their ideas and everything else. You can see the little cogs in their mind starting to work and everything else. And they come back with some really great things. All the talks where I've been interviewed and people have said to me, who are your greatest teachers? And they're thinking I'm going to say someone like Ogman Dingo, Jim Rohn and people like that. And I go, the 9 and 10-year-olds that I examined when I was a surf lifesaver, examining for their bronze medallions, asking them how they saw the surf. And I was looking now through their eyes and seeing things completely different. So my greatest teachers have been so young, and then also some of them older people who are feeling that their life hasn't got much meaning anymore. But once you get them talking about their experiences and everything else, there's a wealth of knowledge at both of those ends. So getting out and talking to those people, spending time with them, it actually slows you down in your process and in your mind, your racing of your mind, but it allows you then to start looking at things differently and seeing the connection between the elderly and the young and everything in between.
Agreed. Yes, agreed.
Well, the old and the young are also much more in touch with their body and their physical needs. They will be really engaged and they will do things while they have the energy to do it, and they will stop when they go, I need a break right now. We force ourselves regularly, the so-called adult life, to overrule all of those internal mechanisms. And then we get to that place where we're exhausted and we push ourselves through. So I think procrastination also has to do with overruling the natural instincts that we have. If we listened more to what we were, and this is the whole working from 8:30 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 9 to 9 or whatever it is, if you're in that kind of, and that's the hamster wheel that Dawn also talked about, if you have to be not productive, but if you have to be seen being productive all day long, come to the place where you can't really do that anymore. And I know that because I have periods where I'm highly productive, and then I have days where I'm not productive at all. And I have been working for myself for 23 years. And I know that there's no point in me sitting in the office and pushing myself through. I go for a walk, I do some exercise, I go to bed and have a nap or anything like that, and then I get back up again and I work. And I sometimes get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I get up at 8. And sometimes I work until 10 o'clock or midnight, and sometimes I go to bed at 8 o'clock. I don't have a regular, when I'm working at home. There's no regularity whatsoever. When I'm working with clients, different story. But I find that that really works well for me when I listen to my body. When I just go past it and I just go, I have to, I must, I ought to, again, that's when I'm likely to procrastinate, or I don't get good results.
I think quite often we listen to all the other. Sorry, I was going to say that quite often we listen to all those other voices in our head, but that's the one voice that we don't listen to, is the one that's saying, "Hey, time to slow down."
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael.
That's okay. I was going to say very much the same thing. We're highly intuitive beings, and if we are able to tap into that intuition, that gut feeling, the intuition that we have, then we have a good relationship with it, really, and get to know it. Then we will do the best thing that we have to for ourselves. And, and Angela was exactly what Angela was saying. She needs to rest. She rests. She doesn't force the situation. And then when you don't do that, you end up being a lot more productive. And you don't feel the need to procrastinate because you're engaged and invested in the process. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's why people end up coming to see me.
Yeah.
The body.
Yeah.
That's why you end up having to see me, addicted to painkillers.
I mean, the whole we working for certain hours every day, that's very new. That's not even been around for 200 years. That was when the factory system started.
That's
when
it.
people had to work. Before that, it was exactly like that. People would write books in 3 weeks' time. But they wasn't the 3 months before that were not called procrastination. That was the preparation for the productivity. So sometimes I think we might have to reframe things a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at education and we go back, look at modern education and go back to when it was started, which was what, 270, 300 years ago. Isn't it terrible to think modern education 300 years ago? Same thing. But it was educating us to work in the factories, to go off the land and spend long hours doing other things for other people. So we had to be educated. So really, we need to revamp education, I think, in a big way. But there's somewhere to think of. But I think we're running out of a little bit of time. But one of the things I just want to thank all three of you. Angela, the other day when we were talking, we started talking about frog soup. Today we're talking about getting off the hamster wheel. And there seems to be a nature thread that keeps coming into it every time we've got you on here. So I love it. But guys, I really appreciate you being here today. First of all, Angela, thanks very much for being here. Dawn, brilliant as always. And thank you, Michael, for being here as well.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. It's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. And I'm sure we can talk about this for another 2 hours. No problems.
That's one of the reasons why I've got to keep an eye on the clock, because I get so involved in loving the conversations and hearing what everyone's got to say. I've got that corner of my eyes always looking out to see the thing moving up. It's there at one moment and then it's up here and I go, whoops, what happened? But like all the other conversations that we've had, I've loved them all. And to everybody else who's been listening in today, thanks for being here. And we'll see you on the next Campfire Project panel discussion. Bye for now.